technical setback here at HQ. Delayed the show earlier today, but luckily I've been able to rectify it. Jimmy and JoAnne, how you guys doing?
Good.
We're doing fine, thank you.
Glad you got everything up and running again. We really appreciate all your hard work. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And the feeling is mutual. You know, there have been a lot of technical disruptions that have been on people's minds. Unclear if it's hacking or a glitch or what. But people have really been looking at the election here in the United States. And then now there's been an announcement that there will be another election in Libya in 2021. What are we going to be talking about tonight, guys?
Well, they've been promising an election in 18 months since 2012, and that's a bunch of bullshit. Because why 18 months? You got 6 million people. They can have an election in 3 months. Since there's no electronic voting at all, everybody goes and writes out a ballot, sticks their thumb in the ink and puts their thumbprint on the ballot. You can have an election really in no time. So 3 months is more than enough. But they keep coming up with this delay, and they keep reinstalling some new phony government. Okay, we'll study it and we'll have an election, and they keep kicking the ball down court.
Yeah, and the UN has never kept their word to Libya. They went in there. First of all, they're the group that was behind blowing up Libya illegally. They didn't even follow their own guidelines. And secondly, on top of that, in 2015, the UN picked some people to run the country that were all Muslim Brotherhood without the approval of the Libyan people, installed them, and they were supposed to only last a year, 2 years at the most with an extension. They were supposed to have an election in 12 months. Never happened. The UN guy who signed that and agreed it disappeared off the scene, and then they had a new guy come in. The UN has never followed through on anything they did with Libya.
But Jason, what we're seeing here in the United States is the disenfranchisement of the people. And that has been happening all over the world for as long as the US, UN, and NATO have been blowing up countries. So 70, 80 countries have had the people disenfranchised under the promise of democracy, but there's no democracy. It's a real bad joke. I think that when the history books are written, this time will show that the United States was absolutely the worst evil empire that ever drew a breath.
Not the people.
Not the people. No, but the people never knew what was going on.
No, they've been.
And the people, whenever all my life, Jason, the candidates put up for any office were one piece of shit and one dog shit. And, so, which one stinks less? Never had a decent candidate ever. And, the thing that the candidates up and promised, we're going to absolutely do this. But what the candidate was really saying, I've got a translator program. And when these candidates speak, and what all of them say is, I'm promising you this, but I'm going to stick it up and break it off where you'll never be able to sit down again in your entire life. That's what really happens from the politicians. But
this is the decoder sheet. You've got the cipher to be able to interpret. Now, I want to ask you guys something, though, about these elections, because I know you've told me in the past that they don't use electronic equipment at all. We do see that they're making all kinds of efforts to modernize these elections. And we know that the UN just basically goes to Libya and does whatever they want. I've included in today's image a picture of a guy that we spoke about, I think, last week. He's a Canadian guy named John Hollins. And the reason I included him here is because he's one of the key leaders of the Delian Project. And we also spoke about the Delian Project. I think it's really pretty interesting for Libya and the region over there, because the Delian Society, or there's a Delian Alliance historically where Athens joined with other city-states, and the purpose of it was to fight Persia. Now we know John Bolton and all the neocons and all those guys want to destroy Iran. So it sounds a little bit like they might have something going on there. And also this Delian alliance basically tricked everybody into pooling their resources. And then the Athenians just used the money and stuff for whatever they wanted, which also sounds very Clintonian. Now, from this page of the Delian Project's website, I saw a thing, and this is the reason I wanted to ask you guys about this, because in December of 2011, following the Libyan revolution of 2011, I mean, this should say destruction, a three-person Canadian election research expedition was sent to Tripoli to meet with senior representatives of the National Transition Council. Delian's future founders were tasked with identifying what form of democratic government structure this National Transition Council was considering. And I mean, the people that they're talking about are these two guys. And look, he's changed his photograph on here. So I guess John Hollins realizes that people are looking at him and he wants to look his best prior to the mugshot. What do you think about that?
Well, Jason, anytime a bully takes over another country for whatever reasons, whatever phony reason, you can bet your ass there's not going to be any democracy. So the attempt to make all voting worldwide electronic and digital, where nobody can really see what's happening, then that's going to open the door for absolute theft, fraud, etc.
Did you say Bitcoin?
Yeah, same thing with Bitcoin. So
Same thing.
you know what it is this group went in there and okay, these poor dumb tribes. We can't hardly cheat them because they get their thumbprint on them. We can't do that. So let's modernize them.
Right.
Let's make them go electronic and forget the thumbprint. That's hell to wash off, So you just put your mark here and we'll count the votes for you. And like Stalin said, I don't care who votes. It's whoever counts the votes is important to me. So we're seeing that here. We're seeing that all over the world. And so this attempt, and that didn't happen in 2011, 2012, primarily because the Libyan people didn't trust anybody that was in there from a foreign entity. And the U.S., UN, and NATO has never put anybody in Libya that had Libya's interest at heart. They had the people that they put in there to run the country are interested in stealing the natural resources. And if they have to kill all the Libyans, well, that's what they'll do.
The National Transitional Council was finished in 2011, and then they went to an appointed government with a bunch of fraud and a bunch of criminals who stole from Libya and blew up parts of Libya and tried to take control of Libya.
Because that first one was so criminal.
Yeah.
They didn't stand a chance. They were stealing.
Don't you guys find it very interesting that these two individuals who are part of the key leadership of the Delian Project were right there in 2011 when this was all happening?
Because the intent was to convert that to a digital system where the people didn't have a vote, because the people were not going to go along with anything that the criminals did that took over their country. They weren't going to go along with. They're going to fight till the last drop of blood.
The last election they were getting ready to have, this is before the Libyan National Army went into Tripoli. Haftar, who was the titular leader of the Libyan National Army, has his own little cult in Libya. He's a CIA. He went in and blew up a lot of the voting areas where they were setting up in buildings and stuff. His army, his inner core. Yeah, it wasn't the Libyan army like it is now. This was before that. They went in and wrecked him because he knew he wasn't going to be elected. Anything, not even dog catcher. So they were threatening people if they voted, they were going to be killed. If they talked about him, if they used his name, they were tracking their phones. It was a real mess. So that was probably 2018.
Really, it's impossible to cheat when you get one ballot and your thumbprint's got to be on. Impossible. So the bad guys that are trying to take away the people's rights to vote and elect their own government and everything, they can't go with a paper ballot where your thumbprint's on it.
They can't have mail-in ballots.
They gotta have mail-in ballots. Got to have digital. Got to have something that nobody can do.
Isn't it true the last election took place in 2010? I mean, the reason I wanted to present all this information to you guys is because just from looking at what we've got right here, I think they're going to make a push to move away from traditional Libyan thumbprint type elections towards this digital system, because as Rudy Giuliani and Sidney Powell have been pointing out, this isn't a matter of some stupid thing that Mary Fanning is talking about, hacking the election. This is a matter of a company that has systematically created a system that is designed to allow them to go in there and change whatever they want.
Okay, Jason, you're right.
It's real hard to do that in Libya, Jason. First of all, it's tribal. They know who votes. They know who doesn't vote. They will never trust an electronic ballot system. They will want to put their thumb, and they can't have a mail-in ballot. They don't have a good enough structure of a post office there. They could never collect the ballots. It would have to be collected,
Yeah,
in
but a mail-in
somebody's
ballot
car.
is
Can
and
you
taken
mail
somewhere.
things in Libya? What's the mail like
Yeah,
in
but
Libya?
not anymore.
Well,
Not anymore.
no, and
No mail.
UPS, and even if you sent something by FedEx or something to Libya before 2012 or 11, it would say this goes to the store, or this goes to the building across from the street from this store. There's very few addresses, and
But
they
really,
were,
nothing was ever delivered. You had to
Yeah.
go pick it up. You had to
Yeah.
go pick it up at the
they
FedEx
had to call
office.
you, and you had to go pick it
Wow.
up because they removed all the addresses when Italy was in there. They didn't,
Uh-huh.
and when the wars were, they didn't want any enemy to know where they lived.
But Jason, here's the fact. Don't stop with Libya. They tried to digitize Syria. Every time Syria's had a vote, Bashar Assad has gotten huge majority, 80, 85, 90% of the votes. Well, they don't like that because they're not able to control that vote. In Libya, the tribes want a traditional vote, period. And since the legitimate Libyans are 90 to 95% of the population, they're never going to accept this phony digitized something that there's no control over. They're a lot smarter than we are.
Yeah, but
Here in
that
the United
doesn't mean they
States-
won't try to shove it in there. They're not accepting
Sure,
this
they're trying to
government,
shove
but
it in
they're
there.
It'll be hard
imposing
for
it.
'em.
They've been trying to shove it in since 2011, Jason.
The CIA has been trying to infiltrate the tribes in all these countries forever, never been able to.
Yeah.
Never been able to.
Hmm.
They have an ancient culture that, I mean, they know each other. They know who will vote. They know there's only 6 million Libyans. It's not like they can say 5 million voted for this guy. And, oh, all of a sudden we got 8 million for this. It can't happen that way.
Talori tells us the U.S. election was like a bowl of candy on the porch at Halloween with a sign that says, "Please take one." Nobody ever follows that sign.
Yeah,
Well,
right.
like right now in Libya, Jason, they've got this phony group of 75 that are over there trying to decide how they're going to divide up Libya. They're Muslim Brotherhood. Nobody in Libya wants to do it. Yet they're trying to force that down everybody's throat.
It was
And the
failure.
fact is, right now, what's going on is that the guy that's trying to become the new prime minister in Libya, with the imprimatur of the U.S., UN, and NATO, is offering to pay 200 to 500,000 per vote to make him the new prime minister, and they're all
these
Muslim
75
Brotherhood.
Yeah, but they failed.
Yeah, they did fail.
They failed.
But it was acknowledged that he was trying to bribe everybody. So this phony representative that the U.S. installed in Libya, she's now had to back up and say, well, we're having to.
This is her this is her success, that she set an election date. That's exactly what they did in every dialogue they've ever had. They've
But
set
isn't
an
it
election
weird,
date
though,
that has never come about.
But isn't it weird that they're talking about it so much right now, just at the moment when
Because
all
she can't talk about anything else. She's had a complete failure on everything else.
And
They
you
got
got-
to have
Williams.
something
you got
they can
Russia
brag
and
about.
China and other countries that are intervening. They want to stop that problem because Libya
Stop.
is a problem for the world.
See where it says right there, Jason, 75 delegates chosen by the UN.
Yeah.
Who was the UN?
They
to-
agreed to
choose?
hold elections within 18 months.
Libya's been wanting to hold elections for 10 years. It's the Muslim Brotherhood in Turkey that have been trying to stop them, and all the other criminals that are in there.
And it's so farcical because these 75 people that have nobody behind them except Muslim Brotherhood from Turkey, they've been instructed now since that failed that they're going to have to go back to their constituents in Libya and decide what the Libyan people really want. There isn't anybody in Libya
Going to talk to
that
them.
wants to see anything but the backside of these guys. It's
Most
such a
of them are from
farce.
Tripoli. They say, oh, they're from all over Libya. You might have one from one area, but they've got a big group of them from the Muslim Brotherhood.
CC
They're
is
gonna
back
send
to
Joe-
the Halloween analogy, saying you come home and the
exactly.
bowl is gone.
They're going to send
exactly.
Joe.
They took
They're
the
going to
bull.
send Joe and Mattress back out in the streets in the United States to find out what the people really want.
Yeah. Well,
Same kind of a thing. Nobody wants them.
Well,
everybody's
it's very obvious.
yeah.
It's very, very obvious when you saw the rallies that Trump had with the 95 car long Trump parade or train or whatever they
95
call
mile
it.
long,
95 mile, 95 mile long. And you see on election night Trump winning, and all of a sudden the election stops.
Right.
The counting stops. Everybody goes to bed and wakes up, and all of a sudden Joe Biden's winning. This is
It
not.
really is
You can't.
very obvious. It's only
It's
the
so
stupid
obvious.
that would.
Yeah, it's stupid
Really believe
obvious
that.
is what it is.
And
Yeah.
what this has happened all over the world, Jason. It's been going on in earnest for the last 10 or 12 years. And
Yeah.
so when you see somebody they're gonna set an election in Libya, that's been a lie they've been propagating really for 10 years. They're gonna have an election in the Sudan, and they've changed the government in the Sudan. They're gonna have something in Yemen, and they've changed the government in Yemen. And then in South America, Bolivia, the US put in their puppet, and the people of Bolivia only could stand that so long, and now then he's out. They've got Guaido that has not had a vote for anything, and Trump installed him as the president of Venezuela. Recognized. His biggest supporters are the drug cartels in Colombia.
You will never see a march like this for Biden. You know, it's Biden. Your basement is calling you.
And wasn't this amazing, though? This is, just Saturday, I was in Washington, D.C. I was really pleasantly surprised by the huge number of people there. I've heard estimates as high as 250,000. And somebody actually, they had a good point, because in a few minutes here, I get up to the crest of this hill, and you can sort of see the whole street and all the people. And somebody said, that number of people would not even fit into the biggest football stadium. So it was well over 100,000 people by that estimate.
Somebody said that there was close to 1 million people in all the areas. Yeah, there were a lot of people.
When you look at the drone shots.
Oh yeah,
there's body to body for as far down the streets in all directions. That's not a few 100,000, Jason.
It's a lot.
That's 1 million or millions.
We saw 1 million.
We saw 2 million people in Libya.
Libya come together,
and this was about the same crowd, or maybe this was a little bit bigger. We saw a crowd of 2 million people in the streets in Tripoli, and I'm telling you, this was as big or bigger.
It was also interesting, all the people who I met from other countries who had come to the United States to flee socialism. This woman was from Vietnam. I spoke to a lot of people from China. I spoke to some people from Nigeria, somebody from Hungary. These are people who know, like, when the government starts censoring the news and starts telling you what's true, it's really beyond scary what's going on here in the United States right now. We're going to be doing our sponsor exclusive show starting in just about 10 minutes. People can join us for that on patreon.com/James and JoAnne Moriarty, or subscribestar.com and patreon.com/crowdsource the truth. There's a lot of new viewers, people who found the channel from watching my trip to Washington, D.C. I want to make sure everybody knows that they can learn more about Jimmy and JoAnne by going to LibyanWarTheTruth.com. That's Jimmy and JoAnne's webpage. And one of the most important things on there is their DVD, Escape from Al-Qaeda. People who sponsor Jimmy and JoAnne on Patreon are going to get free shipping on the DVD. So it's only $15 if you're a sponsor. And it's a great way to learn about what went on in Libya. What are we going to hear about later today on the sponsor exclusive segment, guys?
Well, I've got two really important pieces of law and statute for the United States, and this basically negates the election by law. It's been in effect for over 2 years. The Supreme Court Trump doesn't have to prove that he can pull back all these electoral votes, because the fraud and all the other activities, illegal activities, according to the emergency status the U.S. is under, and under the laws governing elections, the party perpetrating these acts forfeits all their rights to be in the election. So at this point in time, there's one set of candidates for all these elections, and they're Republican only. And this thing's got teeth in it. Yes, sir. When you read it and you look at it, it's there. So it's going to be a really interesting thing. And now let's see, with the teeth in something that can really, that the legitimate Americans can get their teeth into, let's see it move on to the next step.
Yeah, I'm excited to hear that, Jimmy, because I've heard about it, but I know you're going to go into depth on that. And JoAnne, you've got a ton of stuff as well, right?
Yeah, I have a bunch of stuff to talk about Libya. And I just want to tell anybody new who doesn't know us, we're not journalists, we're business people. We were doing business in Libya, we're in the oil gas business, and we were in 2011, we went back on a fact-finding commission, and we were trapped in Tripoli for over 100 days. We were eventually captured by Al-Qaeda, but during that time, we got very close with the tribes of Libya and became their personal spokespersons. We escaped from Al-Qaeda with 3 miracles. And when we got back home, we had the FBI, the CIA, and the DIA in our home. We were attacked by the deep state. We've had everything taken from us. And so our choice was, the CIA told us to shut up. They said, you won't have a life if you don't shut up. And we looked at each other and said, well, we have to go public. And we have documentation, huge amounts of documentation on the war crimes that were committed in Libya and the lies that were done to take over that country. So that's who we are. That's why we're here. Jason's helping us put out the videos that were all taken down from YouTube. They don't want any of this out. So that's who we are.
And actually, we had a huge number of them temporarily taken down from Vimeo as well. The sponsor-exclusive library is going to be completely restored very soon. I'm in communication with the developers every day. It's complicated making these video servers, but we'll have it all back up, and certainly people will be able to see tonight's sponsor-exclusive show on Patreon and Subscribestar. We've got just a few minutes left here. What would you guys like to talk about before we make the transition over to the other segment?
Well, I think everybody really needs to be alert and pay attention to what's going on. The information is coming out, not from the mainstream media, but the presidential order that was put out in 2018 allows the government to take ownership of all the corporations, trusts, individual assets, and everybody of individuals involved in any kind of shenanigans that has to do with the election. We can't talk about some things that are blocked that'll kill the video, but all these are defined in the presidential order. And then on top of that, the really telling thing is the one of the laws by which elections are governed is real specific. And so we're going to discuss all that in our long segment. And it's really going to be encouraging to everybody that's looking for a legitimate and immediate outcome that's going to be acceptable to all the voters. Because even our Democratic friends, they said we would never, ever condone what's been going on by our own party. We would never do it. So,
yeah.
Everybody's disgusted. We've all been disenfranchised. I think today we're going to disclose how everybody is going to be reenfranchised in a way that's going to make this country hopefully honest again.
Yeah, and I think everybody would agree, whatever your political leanings might be, no honest person wants to live in a country where the leader ascends to power by lying and through fraud. I want to ask you guys one other thing, because when you got back from Libya, you were sort of thrust into this world of spycraft and intrigue and CIA people and DIA people coming to your house telling you this, telling you that, getting invited to public speaking engagements where you get harassed by other CIA people. There's a lot of disinformation that people are endeavoring to inject into the news stream. Even this alternative media, this independent news that is really a rapidly growing segment. It's technology has enabled this, and now people are getting a lot of very good information. I think arguably much better information than we get from the corporate funded media. But there's these things coming in that are trying to deflect people from this really important track that the president and his legal team are on. Have you guys seen any of that? And how do you keep yourselves away from disinformation?
Well,
today, another one popped up today, another 9010.
Yeah, I watch, I have a Twitter account. I don't tweet a lot, but I'll go scan it for a few minutes, and I don't follow anybody that puts out disinformation that I know of. So I get updates. Some people put articles out that I catch. I don't watch any mainstream media because it's lies, deception, it's death, disease, and destruction.
But even those guys will put out some pearls that are true.
Yeah.
And we've discovered that over the years, we were told way back there that the way that they infect you with lies is they give you 90% truth and 10% lies. And we're seeing that in the alternate media. We see people that really act like they're really gung-ho and they're truth tellers, and they'll give you all this stuff. and then they put this 10% ball of shit in the soup, like JoAnne says. You can't dig that shit back out. The soup's ruined. So we have a one strike and you're out. If we catch somebody lying, bam, they're finished.
We have zero
But
tolerance.
we still look at the information they provide, and we try to make sure that we glean the truthful stuff out, and the lies become more obvious. And you and I have talked about this a bunch. Even the worst guy, he's going to put out some truth, but then he's going to infiltrate this lie, and you're going to buy the whole thing. That's their plan. That's their scheme.
See that one guy tweeted out, I see your great reset and raise you a great awakening.
Yeah.
That's
funny.
A
great tweet. See, I loved it.
Now, just back to the 90-10 thing for a second, Jimmy, because that's something that the three of us have spoken about quite a bit. I think there's been a little bit of a modification to that plan. I think that sometimes what they do is perhaps, at least in the world of YouTube news and everything, I think there's a big effort to sort of create personalities who are trusted personalities, and they might give truthful information all the time up until a point. And then we get to this moment where that person is sort of activated and they need to present some important piece of information. I watch Gary Franchi's Next News Network. I'm not trying to impugn Gary, not accusing him of anything, but I found it very weird when he had, what was that woman's name with the falconer who showed up and became instantly the poker playing lady?
Yeah.
I can't believe I forgot her name. Anna Kate.
Yeah, Anna Kate.
He had her on there and she was so obviously lying. It seems like they create because they've been also super upset when I call out Amazing Polly and some of these other people, because I think like Kevin Shipp, they spend so much time establishing these personalities that if you reveal them to be untruthful, that's a lot of time and effort spent and wasted.
Jason, let's go step over on the other side of the fence. John Q. Public out here knows that everything is wrong. And they're so desperate to find the truth. They're so desperate to get information.
Yeah, watch One News America. That's a good one. One News America and Pro-Trump News is a good one. I watch that one. It looks like Drudge, but it's all the other side of the news.
Yeah, but see, the people they're so anxious to hear some truth, and so when somebody starts to fill some question marks.
Yeah, they hit the biases.
So they slip in the bad thing.
Yeah.
They slip in the lie.
I'm sorry to cut you guys off, but I took my eye off the time. We've got only 2 minutes until we begin our sponsor exclusive segment on patreon.com/James and JoAnne Moriarty and Patreon and subscribestar.com/Crowdsource the Truth. So I want to make sure everybody has a minute to get over there. And I want to thank everybody who makes these shows possible. Jimmy and JoAnne, I will see you in just a moment on Patreon and Subscribestar. Thanks.